What's up, everybody? Hope you're all doing well today. It's Carpo again, and my question for the day is: what moves you? What drives you? What moves you? What motivates you to keep on going? And I know it sounds like it's just kind of a cheesy question, but I'm really curious because I've had this idea that people need a motivator in life. They need something to look forward to, something exceptional. And not always these goals are attained. Some people spend their entire life searching for an answer or searching for a certain amount of money or a certain home or setting their goals on, even wanting a particular car or item. Sometimes it's about material things. We want to work our way up to where we, can obtain things that we see others that have and appear happy. So all these people driving down this hill right now are all living in the there's a nice Audi. They live in the West Hills, and it's funny because you can watch people. I get here to work and I'll sit here and I can watch them filter down the hill, always at about the same time. And one by one, these fancy cars come mobbing down the hill. And in the evening, it's the same thing, at the exact same time, 4:35. They just all come rolling back up the hill. These are the white-collar workers that have the, 9-to-5 jobs and fit a particular schedule. And, that's the way the world works, at least in this country, People, well, let me try to think of how to word this. See, there goes the van, the piece of junk van. That's the painters that work with us here at the house. You look around and you'll see, this is what got me thinking about this. You see all these crappy cars and they're all at the construction site. I'm in my beat-up truck, and then there's the folks who have the nice cars, and I always feel like when they drive by that they just look at us and scowl. Ugh, construction workers. And it's funny because these cars will come down this hill here, and this is a really narrow street, and all the houses are right on the road. And they'll come down the hill going, whatever, 20 miles an hour, and then as soon as they get to where the construction vehicles are, where we might be slightly blocking the road, we try not to, we try to park way off on the side, but it's a narrow street, and we have a lot of people working sometimes. And as soon as they get between the cars, they just gun it. I mean, they just go flying through here. It's usually middle-aged ladies in Beamers or Mercedes or Audis. I try not to be judgmental, but this is where, when you see people in cars like that, it's hard not to judge a person based on the automobile they drive, if they're driving a nice car. This is my personal take. I don't know. Other people may have gotten past that to where they can just look at somebody driving a Ferrari and not think anything of it. Think, oh, nice car, maybe a nice guy. My first, that's my thought pattern after I process it, but my first initial thought is, oh, Mercedes, yuppie. And I don't think that that's the same as judgment, as, because I'm very opposed to judging people on things we don't understand. But when I see something like, somebody driving a particular car, I know that they're driving that particular car in order to be noticed as a status symbol. And I know people might say they buy a $100,000 car just because it's a good quality car. That is the biggest lie I've ever heard in my life. I mean, you could buy, $20,000 cars and last much longer and be much cheaper to fix. It's not about that. It's about, I have status. And so these people, this is kind of where I'm leading with this. People want to be judged. And as much as people say don't judge one another, I feel like people want and desire to be recognized for their position. So give them what they want, right? Now, I'm trying not to be judgmental on rich people, there's a lady across the street from where I work. And this last summer, she was really nice. She'd bring us cookies and whatnot. She was curious about the project. She was excited because the house was being fixed, and I know that that increases her property value. And so in one sense, she'd bring us cookies once in a while, and you'd think if a person's bringing us cookies, she must be a nice person. Well, there's another way to look at this. By bringing us cookies, she's ensuring that we'll be respectful, near her property, which is in front, not park in front of her house, and try to keep it down in the mornings. I guess she complained once because somebody was working too early, and maybe the cookies were an apology. I don't know. I came later after this, but she's always waves. She's always nice, and she comes over. She looks at the house, and then the other day, one of the guys parked in front of her garage on accident. Her garage looks like it's a really fancy door with stained glass windows. It looks like a panel wall. And doesn't look like a driveway, but one of the guys who hadn't been to the job site, he went and parked in front of the garage on accident, and she comes out of the garage, and I'm working out in front of the house, and she's like, "Whose car is this?" It's like, I don't know. She's like, "Whose car is this? Who's parked in front of my garage?" She's like, "You can't park in front of my garage," and she's like looking around it for somebody to like point the finger at, and I was like, "I don't know, we'll figure out whose it is," and it was one of the electricians or the painters, and he comes out and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." He went to move the car, and she's just like, "You can't park there." She's like, I'm in a hurry. And it really opened my eyes to this. I guess it didn't open my eyes. I've already been well aware of this, but it reminded me that people always put on this image, this front, but as soon as you inconvenience them, they expose the side of them that you never would have thought, they had. People are very impatient, they want things their way. And the more money a person has, it seems like the more impatient they become. And, that sounds harsh to a person who has money, a lot of money. I'm not talking about even a person who has $500,000 or $1 million or a couple million. I'm talking about people who have a lot of money. But even those who don't have a lot of money, up here in the West Hills, a lot of these people aren't rich. They just work here, and they work in Portland and make good money. They're CEOs or do whatever they do. But a lot of these people live paycheck to paycheck, just like we do. I worked for a guy that had like 12 properties that they rented out, plus this huge historic house I remodeled. He was always buying the nicest stuff, the nicest sinks, the nicest every appliance for his house, way over the top, and spending too much money. And then one day he ran out. The properties weren't paying off as much as they needed, and I just lost my job basically working for him because he couldn't afford to pay me anymore. It was just kind of an eye-opener, and that people pretend like they have this and that, but in reality, a lot of them are just barely making it by. So in that sense, I can't judge everyone based on their house or their car. That's what I'm saying. You can't just say since a person has a Mercedes or a Beamer that they're a bad person, or a greedy or a rich person. They might just barely be making that payment in order to impress their friends, and that's the way this capitalist system works. You know what the worst part about it is? That if you can impress someone, you can convince them to loan you money, even if you have none, or never will pay them back. In other words, we've all seen how these, the scammers, you see this in movies and whatnot, through how the people, they dress all nice, pretend like they're rich, and convince someone to take a particular loan or try to get a reinvestment. Actually, a movie that just came out, American Hustle, that's a great example, perfect example of what I'm talking about. You pretend to be indifferent, pretend like you've got enough money, and people will want to attach themselves to that. And just remember one thing, this has really helped me, is that, it's something I heard from Manly Hall. He said, you can't cheat an honest man. And, that really hit home for me. I think about that a lot. And it's so true. I've heard folks come to me and say, I got ripped off. I freaking gave this guy this money, and he was supposed to hook me up with this or that, and I was supposed to get a super good deal, and I ended up getting nothing. Whatever it might be, buying. And I just say, well, what do you expect? Who would want to give you more than you put in? Unless they're making a bigger profit, or else they're totally scamming you. And the whole idea is that not being able to cheat an honest man is you're never going to get ripped off if you're not trying to pull one over on other people. You might buy, something off Craigslist that is really expensive, and that you assume the other person just doesn't know is worth that much money. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to make a deal. Then you get it and you find out it's broken, or it's a low quality, or it's not what you thought it was. I mean, you get what you pay for, and you get treated as you treat others. But if you're trying to get one over on society, it might bite you back. I know there are plenty of people who get one over anyway. They take advantage of others. In other words, the only way to gain more than you have earned is to take from others. And I think that's one of the most important facts that I have to remember all the time. If you cannot, if you're taking more than your share, others are suffering because of it. And that's just kind of, goes without saying. It may be small. It may be a butterfly, affecting the whole world kind of thing, the butterfly effect. You made one over on somebody, and, let's say you invest with somebody, and then he brings you back more money. That money was made off of somebody else's loss. Then that person who took a loss ends up, let's say, stealing to make up for that. Then the person who gets stolen from ends up having to raise their insurance rates. There are a million different directions this can go. And it's just a matter of how we justify things to ourselves, and tell ourselves, well, I got to get mine. I got to get mine. And getting mine is always at the cost of someone else. There are exceptions to the rule. You might strike it big. You might be out there and you might find a deposit, a mining deposit. Let's say you're out in the desert and you find a gold, vein, and you stake a claim and you become rich. Who's being harmed in that point? Well, the earth is being harmed. I'm not saying that that's, I wouldn't do it. I'm saying that that's just there's always something. There's always something that's being harmed for someone to make more. So, I'm open to any alternatives to that, or any, if anybody has, I don't know, a different idea of that, because I haven't been able to yet find any real ways to become financially successful without somebody else suffering because of it. It's not always the case, but I better go now. It's time for work.